You know, we're always hearing the term cybercrime thrown around in the news, but what does it actually mean? It's this huge, kind of intimidating topic, right? Well, today, we're going to demystify it. We're going to break it all down with a simple, clear framework that'll help you make sense of all the digital threats out there. So, let's just dive right in.
I'm willing to bet you have. It's a feeling we've all had. You get that weird text from an unknown number or an email that says it's from your bank, but the link looks a little funny. That little gut feeling, that sense that something's not quite right, that's your first line of defense in a world where crime has gone digital. And that feeling is our entry point for today.
Now, the key phrase from the official definition here is substantial role. And that definition is incredibly broad for a reason. We're not just talking about a criminal using a phone to text an accomplice. Nope. This covers the whole shebang, from super sophisticated hacks targeting global companies, all the way down to old-school scams like fraud that have just found a new and much more powerful home online.
So to get a handle on all this, here's our game plan. We'll start with a really simple framework to classify these threats. Then we'll look at the two main types: crimes that attack the technology itself versus crimes that use tech as a weapon. We're also going to explore how cybercrime has morphed into a massive business. And finally, and most importantly, we'll cover what you can actually do to protect yourself.
Okay, so to make sense of such a huge topic, we need a simple way to think about it. And the RCMP actually splits cybercrime into two main phases, which is an incredibly helpful way to categorize pretty much any digital threat you can think of. This simple split helps clarify everything. So here's the simplest way to think about it. Is the computer the victim, or is it the weapon? On one side, you've got attacks aimed directly at our digital world, our computers, our networks. On the other side, you've got criminals using that exact same technology to commit crimes we're all familiar with, like theft and fraud, but now they can do it on a global scale.
All right, let's dive into that first category, where the technology itself is the target. This is the side of cybercrime that feels like it's straight out of a movie, you know? We're talking about hackers breaking into secure systems, unleashing malicious code, and causing all sorts of digital chaos.
And this is what makes them so unique. Think about it. You couldn't commit a crime like mischief in relation to data before we had data in this form. These are crimes that were literally born out of our interconnected world, and they exploit the very vulnerabilities in the tech we all rely on every single day.
What's pretty wild is that hacking didn't always have this bad reputation. It actually started as this culture of intellectual curiosity, people just pushing the limits of what technology could do. But as you can see, over the decades, that innocent exploration really changed. It went from simple pranks in the 70s to state-sponsored spying in the 80s, and finally, to the massive criminal industry it is today.
So what's in the modern hacker's toolkit? Well, let's break down the classics. A virus is like a biological one. It has to latch onto another program to spread. A worm is a bit more independent. It can wriggle through networks all by itself. A Trojan horse is exactly what it sounds like. It pretends to be something useful to trick you into letting it past your defenses. And then you've got phishing, and its cousin smishing for text messages. These are less about fancy code and more about psychology, just trying to fool you into handing over your own info.
Now, one of the most common ways to attack a target directly is the denial-of-service attack. The idea is actually super simple. Imagine 100,000 people all trying to cram through a single doorway at the exact same time. What happens? Nobody gets through, and the doorway becomes totally useless. That, in a nutshell, is a DOS attack for a website.
And the scale of these attacks today is, well, it's just mind-boggling. To try and put this number into perspective, 2.3 terabits per second is enough data to download hundreds of high-def movies every single second. It's an unbelievable fire hose of junk data, all aimed at knocking a target completely offline.
So how did they pull this off? They use what's called a distributed denial-of-service, or DDoS attack. The criminal doesn't just use their own computer. Oh no, they use a botnet, which is basically a zombie army of thousands of infected computers belonging to everyday, unsuspecting people. Then, with a single command, this entire zombie army unleashes a crushing wave of traffic at the target, bringing it to its knees.
Okay, let's switch gears and look at our second category, tech as the weapon. In these cases, the technology itself isn't being attacked. Instead, it's become this incredibly powerful tool that criminals use to commit crimes that have been around for centuries. We're talking theft, fraud, and exploitation, but now on a global scale.
Right, so this is where cybercrime really starts to intersect with our physical world. The goal isn't to crash a server anymore. The goal is to steal your money, to steal your identity, or to exploit you. The internet just gives criminals this incredible reach, speed, and anonymity to do it better than ever before.
A perfect and kind of sneaky example of this is cryptojacking. This is a very stealthy crime. Your computer isn't being held for ransom or anything like that. Instead, it's being secretly put to work. A criminal is using your device's processing power, your electricity, to mine cryptocurrency for themselves, all while you're just sitting there wondering why your laptop is suddenly running so slow.
And this really shows the real-world impact. Cryptojacking isn't just a digital problem, it has actual physical symptoms. Because this malware is secretly maxing out your processor, you might notice your fans are just spinning like crazy, your device is getting hot, or everything is just running incredibly slowly. It can even use so much extra power that it'll show up on your electricity bill.
And of course, technology is the perfect weapon for good old-fashioned financial fraud. This quote just perfectly captures the illusion they create in scams like binary options. They build these slick, professional-looking websites that show your investment making huge profits. But it's all fake. It's a mirage. The money was gone the second you sent it.
Okay, this brings us to a really crucial point about cybercrime today. It's not just some lone hacker in a basement anymore. Nope. It has become a sophisticated, professional industry. It's crime gone corporate.
I mean, just look at this. It's literally a menu of criminal services. Cybercrime now operates just like a legitimate tech business. You don't have to be a coding genius to launch a massive attack anymore. You can just lease ransomware, rent a botnet for a DDoS attack, or buy a ready-made phishing kit. This whole as-a-service model has dramatically lowered the barrier to entry, putting powerful criminal tools in the hands of almost anyone.
And these are not small-time operations. Take Genesis Market, for example. Think of it like a criminal's version of Amazon or eBay. It sold not just passwords, but entire digital fingerprints. Things like browser cookies and device info that allowed criminals to perfectly impersonate their victims and waltz right past security. It was a one-stop shop for fraud, until a massive global police operation finally took it down.
So the takeaway here is huge. The internet has allowed organized crime to go corporate, to go global. It provides a virtual storefront for illegal goods and services, and it offers incredibly sophisticated ways to launder money, making the profits from all this crime nearly impossible to trace.
Okay, I know that was a lot of doom and gloom. So, the big question is, what can we do? How do we actually fight back? Well, the good news is you don't need to be a security expert. A few key steps, what experts call basic digital hygiene, can make a massive difference in keeping you safe online.
Let's talk about your digital defense kit. The single most important thing you can do is enable multi-factor authentication, or MFA, everywhere you can. That's when you need a code from your phone to log in. Seriously, even if a criminal steals your password, MFA can stop them cold. Combine that with using unique, strong passwords for all your important accounts, and you've already built a really strong foundation. And just as important, always be skeptical of unexpected links and attachments. That little bit of vigilance is an incredibly powerful defense.
And this really brings us to our final thought for today. As technology evolves, so does crime. With AI creating deepfake videos and audio that are becoming almost impossible to distinguish from reality, the very idea of what we can trust online is being challenged every single day. It's an ongoing battle, and staying informed and staying vigilant is our best weapon. Thanks for joining me on this one.